everybody, and welcome to an impromptu bonus episode of Mocktails from the Cantina. Another round. This is a podcast edition of the show, exclusive to Patreon members. Exclusive to Patreon members, but today is a special day, and I want to share it with all of you. This is the 5th year anniversary of Rogue One. And so Merry Christmas to all of you. And if you got a couple dollars to spare, man, head on over to Machtails from the Cantina Patreon page. You get all kinds of cool exclusive content. I know a lot of people have been wondering, why is Rogue One my favorite? I guess spoiler alert, right? Because I titled this Rogue One, is it the greatest Star Wars film ever made? Well, I'm going to get into that. I am going to get into that, but I want to take you back to December 15th, 2016. It was a cold, wintry night in Chicago. Yes, there were delays with snow. I bought my ticket so last minute that I bought a solo seat, like about a half an hour away from my house, at an IMAX. So my first, time seeing Rogue One, it was on an IMAX with the 3D glasses. I was not super excited about that because I believe the way a Star Wars film should be debuted to us, personal experience, just the old school way, like kind of how we saw the original trilogy, not in 3D, not in IMAX. So I had a solo ticket because I bought it so last minute. Never in my life had I went to a Star Wars movie premiere by myself. It just felt so strange and so uneventful, and I had zero expectations about this film because for the longest time we knew that there wasn't going to be a 7, 8, and 9, and then all of a sudden Disney buys the franchise, and it's like, okay, we're just going to pound out these Star Wars movies. It wasn't the every 2-year wait machine that Lucasfilm was running since the original trilogy had come out. So I started to have even not only zero expectations about this film, but some negative expectations. I mean, how can you have a film without lightsabers and the Force? How can you have a soundtrack without John Williams? How can we have a Star Wars movie after we just got a Star Wars movie not even a year before that? But it's a Star Wars film. And I was excited to see it. I stayed away from the spoilers. I stayed away from the storyline. I simply stayed away. I did not get caught up in the hype. Like I did say with the prequel trilogy. There was so much hype around that. I was waiting for Darth Maul to pop out of the screen and to cut me in half. But with Rogue One, I just kind of went in under the radar. So yes, it was very strange when the film started. And I remember I was kind of running late. I was cooking chicken and waffles at the house. I didn't want to eat out. I'm like, let's go. I'm by myself, so I'm on my own schedule. And I did not want to be late. So I'm sitting in the theater. And of course, the first thing that we remember, right, is there's no Star Wars crawl. And the music was obviously different. But as I got past that opening scene, that the soundtrack makes like a rung, like a clanking noise, right? And then it just bam, the Death Star pops up at you. And if my memory serves me well, it wasn't the Death Star, it was the home planet. I've seen the movie 30 times, and for some reason, it's a good trivia question. What is the first thing that we see in Rogue One? So while I was watching the film, I just got pulled in more and more and more. And I started to realize that these characters that were never introduced to us at all, there was something about them that was very, very believable, that I was getting drawn into, that I was getting attracted to. And the acting was just over the top. You know, it was over the top without being the extreme acting that we've seen in the sequels. And I was not disappointed with episode 7. I know a lot of people hate the sequels. A lot of people say that they were reboots. You know, they felt like they kind of got ripped off a little bit. It's like, how can you remake Star Wars? You know, which essentially, a lot of people thought that's what episode 7 was. Now, with this film, taking place right before A New Hope, I just thought that the originality of it and the unfamiliar felt familiar. And in the way that I felt about the Jedis in the prequels, huge fan of the Jedis. I really thought that was such an important part of the prequels. Obviously, the Jedi Council and Anakin's fall and Anakin's betrayal. It was a huge, huge part of that. The prequel trilogy, and when I saw Baze and Chirrut, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a throwback to like the sad story of what happened to the Jedi. So instantly, Chirrut specifically was my favorite character. He was the action figure that I went out and bought like that week. And at this point, I had stopped collecting things. I had stopped with the autograph collecting. But after seeing Rogue One, it really sparked all that. It sparked me quoting the films. It sparked me kind of, role playing, like, driving when I'm in a hurry somewhere. I would have the Master Switch playing or the Jeddah City Ambush playing on the soundtrack. I'm taking my daughter to school. We're running late. Those were the elements to me that made Star Wars feel like Star Wars and really connected with my fandom. I did not get that with episode 7, 8 or 9 for that matter. So, the story goes on. They're on this mission. A friend of mine, Patrick Jesse, had said the thing that he did not like about Rogue One was that he could not believe how Jyn Erso had simply just been against, you know, the chase for the plans, if you will, the mission to get the plans. And then her father dies in her arms, and then she's like, you know what, I'm all in. But think about that. Her father, that she loved and had a parting with, not by choice, a forced parting. The fact that he had this wish for her to carry out this mission. How could that not be believable? I'm starting to wonder, if you don't believe that, then would you not believe if your mom or dad had a dying wish to pass on to you? And to say, hey, this really, really needs to be done. And again, because I'm a father of a daughter, that movie connected with me. And a lot of people say that they felt like the female characters were forced, right? Because in the original trilogy, you really just had Princess Leia. And then in the prequels, you really just had Padme. But then by the time episode 8 came around, you started, and 9, you started seeing these female characters that were kind of, okay, let's get with the movement now, and let's give the females more light. I don't believe that was necessary because that wasn't a problem with the old films or the prequels. And I feel like they did that naturally in Rogue One by making Jyn Erso the main character. I also felt like they did that with everybody's different ethnic backgrounds of all these characters. And yes, Harrison, Carrie, and Mark had this chemistry. That's a trio. You can even throw Lando in there. The foursome, right? And you have Anthony Daniels, R2, Kenny Baker, and Peter Mayhew as Chewbacca. Yeah, that's your six, right? Those are lovable classic characters. But then in Rogue One, you have K2SO, who is CGI, and after you see him for the first time, you don't even really follow that he's a CGI character. I felt that way with Tarkin too. It's like we're seeing Grand Moff Tarkin, Peter Cushing, but I is that CGI or is that not? You know, my brother was a big critic too. He's a Star Wars fan. He's not a fanatic like myself. He's in the movies, and he goes, dude, I could not tell. I could not tell if that was CGI or not. He had said that he thought the prequels were just overkill with the CGI, you know. But I felt like, okay, you have K2SO, you have Baze and Chirrut, and you got Bodhi, Cassian, and Jin. Those are your six. Those are your six hard, heavy hitters, you know? Compared to, and this is blasphemy, I know, this is blasphemy, but if you compare those six to Harrison Ford, you know, let's just say character names, right? Because we don't want to compare the actors, even though I thought the acting was just brilliant in Rogue One. I just thought these actors in this film were super established. Maybe not all established in the United States, you know, because Chase, Baze and Chirrut, Donnie Yen, and I should know his name. It always escapes me because the actor that played Baze, he has been so elusive. I've never seen him sign any autographs. He's only attended the convention celebration that was in Europe. I believe that was when the right before the film came out. But these actors were established. Look, you Forrest Whitaker. Okay, he's your seventh. You had him, phenomenal actor. You know, Felicity Jones. She's an A-lister. And then look at what Riz Ahmed is doing. So these people are going on to do really, really big things. I think this cast of actors and actresses blows away, in my opinion, the sequels as much as I, you know, appreciate the sequel movies. I'm not a hater of those. But I just felt like the chemistry that these guys all had, and they were kind of on the screen a lot together, you know? It made it really special. And then I love the darkness of it. There's something about Rogue One that's darker than Empire Strikes Back. And of course, we say that we love Empire because of the tragedy, because of it's the darkest film aside from Revenge of the Sith. So I guess it depends. What are you into as a Star Wars fan? Are you into it for, you know, fantasy? Are you into it for escape? You know, are you into it for a positive ending? Well, you didn't get that with Empire, Revenge, or Rogue One, and I think that is why all three of those films are my favorite. I love a Star Wars movie for the emotional impact that it has on me. And as many times as I've seen Rogue One, I that's the only Star Wars film that not only makes me emotional, but it makes me emotional through several parts of the film. It moves me like no other Star Wars film does. And if you want to compare it to Empire Strikes Back, because those are like the two big fan favorites. Let's even talk about Revenge of the Sith, right? So we got three. We got a Disney era movie, we got a prequel movie, we got an original trilogy movie. Those films are the darkest. If you take out the nostalgia factor, though, and God bless Irvin Kershner, probably the best director that has directed a Star Wars film by any and all means. But if you take the nostalgia factor out for me, of Empire Strikes Back, I think that loses so much. And A New Hope, I was not the kid like my friend Jimmy Mack that saw it when I was 8 years old and got blown away by it because I've seen a couple movies beforehand or whatnot. I was much older. I was much younger, I should say. I was 3, 4 years old when the first Star Wars movie came out, and that was great for sparking my rebirth of the Star Wars franchise. The binary sunset scene, one of the most impactful moments, and that music is so over the top and hard to beat. But if you compare Rogue One to that, if anything, it makes A New Hope that much better. And I know the argument is, well, A New Hope was the first one. You wouldn't have Rogue One if it wasn't for what happened in, you wouldn't have Rogue One if A New Hope never happened. Sure, you can say that about a lot of different movies. You can say that about a lot of, music. You can say that about a lot of movements in our past that have been, culturally impactful, historically significant. But it's again, the storyline and being on this chase and living with these characters. And then what happens? This is not a spoiler. We all know what happens. Everybody dies. Everybody dies. So to fall in love with the characters and then everyone dies is just so powerful. So powerful. Does any Star Wars movie move you like that? Come on, man. Does any Star Wars movie just give it and then take it all away? No, it's there was something about it too that made me feel like at that time, however old I was, 40, mid 40s, let's say, it made me feel the way I felt about Star Wars when I rediscovered it as a teenager and when I saw it for the first time as a 5-year-old. Rogue One made me feel like that. The prequels, as much as I love them, and it was wonderful to see something that was talked about for so long. But it was, I guess what I'm getting at is the emotional impact that film had. There was nothing else like it. There was nothing else like it. Now you could say, wait, what is my favorite scene? I don't really have a favorite scene. I could probably list about 30 different scenes that that I love, and I want to do that. I want to sit down. I want to write a journal, and I want to just kind of bullet points all the scenes that hit me. I think one of the greatest things, any moment between Baze and Chirrut were over the top. I think because you have this blind, I don't want to call him a Jedi. You have this blind Jedi believer. It's somewhat in tune with the Force as much as he can. I swear, when he walks across to get the Master Switch, I swear that they're shooting at him, but the Force is protecting him. And then, of course, he pulls the switch back, and that's when he goes. Um, and you have this sidekick of his, Baze, who was once a believer. And a lot of people can relate to Baze that have kind of had a problem with organized religion or even religion in general, right? We all kind of come from, I would like to think, this spiritual beginning, and we kind of lose it as we get older. Some of us don't, some of us grow stronger with it. But when Baze is holding Cherit's hand and Baze tells him, always, through the forest, you will find me. And Baze then kind of redeems himself as a spiritual person, right? Because he was the biggest, believer. He was the biggest guardian of them all. And we kind of see him fall from grace, and then we kind of see him redeem himself, very much like Vader does at the end of Return of the Jedi. Very much like that. So there's elements of the old Star Wars movies that are in the film that are subtle, instead of just kind of ripping it off and borrowing them right from 7, 8, and 9. The film, I felt going back to the way it made me feel like a kid again. There was something about all the background characters as well. There was something about just wanting to know, like the Hammerhead Corvette captain. Like I wanted to know that guy's backstory. I felt like that during the prequels. There were a lot of side characters, a lot of background characters. But as a kid, it's like it reminded me of when I saw Bosk and IG-88. Again, tapping into my youth from when I had seen it the first time. Now, a lot of people also say that it's their favorite of the Disney era. I feel like they're too tied. It's kind of hard to let go, right? It was hard for me to say, yes, Rogue One is my favorite Star Wars film. Because in the beginning, I'm like, it's my favorite new Star Wars film. But there were only really two movies. There was The Force Awakens, and it was Rogue One. And are you afraid to admit that Rogue One is your favorite? Is your favorite film? Maybe it's not, but I posted something today on Facebook that a lot of people had said that it is in their top, three. Some people went as far to say, yes, this is my favorite film. Now I don't know how somebody could not like the film. I've met people that don't like it. I don't know if I want to question their fandom, because who am I to say? I'm not like, that's gatekeeping at that point. If you don't like Rogue One, I feel sorry that you missed out on such a wonderful, wonderful movie. And I was blown away by the soundtrack because, like I said, John Williams did not compose the score, and that was the first. It was the first Star Wars movie that we got shortly after a new Star Wars film, right? Like I said, not even a year later, bam, a side story is going to get thrown at us. It's the first film without John Williams, and I'm thinking, whoa, 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 you got to slow down. I do feel some of the one of the moments that always comes to mind too, like the smallest moments of Jimmy Smith's, as Bail Organa kind of emerging from the darkness when Mon Mothma is talking to Jin, and you hear the Force theme on the French horn, very subtle in the back. And Jimmy, Bail Organa, he doesn't say a word. He just steps out. Like that is enough. That was enough to get me emotional. One, you got the song, right? You got the song from essentially the binary theme variation, if you will. And you have a character, one of my favorite characters from the prequel movies, come out. So, and the fact that it connected the prequels to the original trilogy, more so than what the film did at the end of Revenge of the Sith. Was just like, I didn't really know that that could be done. There was a film called The Dark Redemption. It was a fan film. You could probably see this on YouTube. It was with Mara Jade. It was with Boba Fett. It had so many different uh, copyright infringements. I believe that the lawyers of Lucasfilm had shut this thing down. It was a fun watch. Boba Fett flies. We get to see Mara Jade. And at the end of the film, we see the Rebel fleet troopers in a much different fashion than we did in Rogue One get the plans. That was a fun movie. So it was a dream to see it done on the level that I want to say the experienced filmmakers. I don't want to say pros, I don't want to. I'm an independent filmmaker, as you guys know. I never like to, diss on anybody that is not in the film business on a high caliber level. But a lot of people say that they love the end scene where Vader, ignites the lightsaber and the faces on the Rebel fleet troopers, which, by the way, I mean, they make the Rebel fleet troopers from A New Hope look like a bunch of pussies. I just think they make those characters 100 times. Like, I didn't like the Rebel fleet troopers before I saw Rogue One. Now I have a collection of Rebel fleet troopers simply because of how intense and how emotional and how awesome those actors portrayed those minor characters when Vader ignites the lightsaber. But it was before that. It was before. It was everything before that made that scene that much better. That was like the finale in the chapter. And right before that, one of the scenes that always gets me, you see Jyn and Cassian, take down Krennic, and they know they're gonna die. They're the only characters that really, really know that they're gonna die. Everybody else kind of got taken out, where there was time to breathe and think about how it was going to end for those characters. And they're in the elevator. They could have kissed. No, they didn't. They didn't cross that line into romance. But they're holding hands, walking to the beach, and they pretty much fall down. Not only is it the end of the road, literally, because they're going to be in the water, but it was the end of the road for them. Cassian is kind of hobbling at this point, and the music is swirling, and they're holding hands, and you could just see the sky starting to, turn bad, like it was in Jeddah City, where Saw looked out at the window when he saw that apocalyptic moment where the city was just, the entire planet was collapsing. And I love it when he says, your father would be proud. That's his last words to her. That's what the film was about. That's, it connected me to, being without a father for most of my life. I heard that when I was growing up, during elementary school and high school. Your father would be proud. So it's just one of those moments, and then you just see them hug each other, and then they demise, and then it's the Vader scene. So it just keeps getting more emotionally intense. More emotionally intense. Can you name any other Star Wars film that rolls that heavily? It builds and builds and builds and builds and builds, and then all of a sudden it's like this apocalyptic end for not only Jyn and Cassian, but the Rebel troopers get slaughtered. They have the look of fear on their, like, if that movie doesn't wrap you in, I don't know, something might be wrong with you at that point. something might be wrong with it at that point. That scene is more intense to me than the Duel of the Fates. It is better than Obi-Wan versus Anakin. Um, because it's not just that scene, it's everything that came before it. Now I sound like I'm on the preaching train, the Rogue One preaching train, but that movie just, it did that. It did that to me. It did that to me. I don't know. Maybe it did that to you too. Maybe it did. Maybe you're like, I don't want to listen to this guy rant and riff about Rogue One because Rogue One sucked. Well, like I said, I'm sorry. I am sorry that you missed out on that opportunity. So at the end of the film, I'm sitting there, and of course we see Princess Leia, you know, on the screen. So it ends just so like kind of peacefully and hopefully. As she said, yes, this is hope, right? And a friend of mine comes up to me and he's like, "So what'd you think?" And at this point, I'm literally wiping the tears from my eyes. The only film that made me tear up, and every time I saw it in the theater, I saw that 15 times in the theater. But the end of Revenge of the Sith is super emotionally moving to me. That was tragedy. And at the same time, it's like, okay, there's something about it that made me sad because at the time, that was the last Star Wars movie that we were ever going to see. That we were ever going to see. So my friend walks up to me and he goes, "So, what'd you think?" And I'm like, I was just like, wow, wow. That was all I said. So I get in the car, and it's funny. I remember this night vividly, and the reason why I remember the release date of Rogue One so much is because my father's birthday is December 16th. And on the poster for Rogue One, it was released on the 16th, but like all the other Star Wars movies, they throw it on the screen the night before. They used to throw it on at midnight, 12:01 would be the showing, but I feel like with episode 7 and with Rogue One, at that time we were kind of in a new era, if you will, literally, like just all around in general. And there was no 12:01 show. We were lucky that we got the midnight toy release for episode 7 at the late great Toys R Us. So I get out in the car and I talk to Ian Basic. Ian's my business partner that I do all the documentaries with. And he goes, "So what'd you think? Was it the best Star Wars film you ever saw?" And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! I gotta digest this. I gotta digest." I'm like, "Yeah, it was great. It was great." I'm like, uh, after I saw Rogue One, I had not. I felt that way after leaving Revenge of the Sith. Like when I saw that movie for the first time, I was blown away, and there was a lot to digest. And again, I stayed away from the spoilers. But it's that night I saw Rogue One. I did not say this is my most favorite film. I said, yeah, it was great. But then I think by the time I saw it like 8 times in the theater, I was like, you know what, yeah, because it was a film that I wanted to see in the theater over and over again. Like with episode 7 and even 8 and 9 thereafter, I felt like I had this Star Wars quota to meet because I saw episode 1 30 times, then I, saw episode 2, 25 times in the theater, and then I had seen Revenge of the Sith 15 times in the theater. And Revenge, I wanted to see more and more and more. Rogue One, I wanted to see more and more and more. But after I saw you know, 7, 8, and 9 a couple times, I was like, okay, I don't have to have a Star Wars quota. That's just, I don't feel like seeing a movie anymore. I don't feel like seeing a movie anymore. And Rogue One actually, because it did so well at the box office, they kept that one around a little longer. I felt like than 8 and 9. I remember seeing that at the Dollar Show, uh, probably in March of 17. So I was pretty lucky, and I was nostalgic about that experience because the last time a Star Wars movie had really stuck around that long was the prequels. Now I do want to say that uh, Rogue One ruined Solo for me because I was like, man, if every Star Wars film is going to be this good, then we got it made. And if I never saw Rogue One, Solo would have been a fun movie. But I think that it raised the bar so high that I mean, if you compare Solo to Rogue One, Solo is a piece of shit film. It is just there's no substance, there's no emotion, or little emotion. There's some moments in there, you know. But after reading the Han Solo trilogy, the book form Del Rey Books put out back in the day, I was expecting a lot more from Solo, and I kind of blame Rogue One raising the bar so high, so freaking high, uh, for Star Wars films to follow. And I will say my biggest disappointment is that Rogue One has got the least amount of merchandise. All right, maybe episode 2, there was not a lot of merchandise with that film. I felt like with the prequels, because episode 1 it was everywhere. It was like crammed down your throat. If you didn't hear of Star Wars, you heard of Star Wars just by seeing episode 1 stuff everywhere. So I feel like the merchandising train had kind of dwindled down from episode 1 down through 3. 7 kind of picked back up, but then by the time Rogue One came out, the merchandise in general was so limited. It is nice that they're putting out stuff now, but it's taken 5 years to. The good thing about it is that I don't have to worry about my Rogue One collection overtaking the Wampa Cave, where I do the show from, where my Star Wars collection is. I think that's my biggest complaint because it's the film that I want to be, a part of. Like that's why we surround. That's why I don't know. I collect because I want to be surrounded by cool shit that reminds me of stuff I love, and that's Star Wars. And then there's certain things, like I got a lot of prequel stuff. I got a shelf just dedicated to two shelves just dedicated to the Jedi from the prequels because I think that was such a wonderful part of those, episode 1, 2, and 3. And it took, like I said, it took a couple viewings later, but it's really hard to say, that I don't love this film. Number one. This film is my number one Star Wars movie. Simply because every time I watch it, I feel like it's fresh. And going back to the merchandising with Rogue One, how many more Grogus do we need? How many more Grogus do we need? It is like overwhelming. It's consuming. It's just, I really don't know if it's necessary at that point, but we love the Mandalorian and we keep buying the shit that they throw at us. So why not throw the Rogue One fans, and I know they're out there, why not throw a bone? Why not throw us a bone? Oh, I'm super excited about Cassian. Now, here's a question. Will my love of Rogue One hype up my interest in Cassian so much? Can Cassian fall short? Because just naturally, if it's a Rogue One related film, it's going to be as good as the movie? No, I don't think so. I mean, this is blasphemy, but I still think there's something special about the Star Wars sequels. As good as The Mandalorian is, I don't believe The Mandalorian, has the special moments of, that we see in 7, 8, 9. I mean, just the fact that we saw Han, Luke, and Leia, and those actors and actress live in the flesh. I mean, that's hard to beat. That is what Star Wars fans have been waiting for since, at the end of the summer of 1983. And we finally got that. I think that was a little bit of the disappointment too with the prequels, right? It's okay. We got all new characters, well, except for Anakin and Obi-Wan, but there's no familiar faces in here. So that answers my next question. Yeah, my fear of being a Star Wars fan is, can Star Wars go on? Can Star Wars go on without the Skywalker legacy? I think it can. I think it can. Even the Mandalorian, of course, at the end, Luke Skywalker shows up. So yeah, then you're saying, okay, this is going to tie everything back to, the OT. Rogue One, of course, was obviously tied to the OT, and so were the prequels. The sequels tied to the original trilogy. I don't know. Can it be done? I would like to think it can be done. I'd like to keep it somewhat in a familiar. I don't know about you, but as a Star Wars fan, I love familiarity. I don't need a world of completely new stuff. That's not why I fell in love with Star Wars all over again to begin with. I fell in love with it for nostalgic reasons. I fell in love with it because I was connecting with it. It was familiar. It was like going home. It was like going back to my old childhood home. When I rediscovered those films again. And for those of you that, say that you never had a falling out with Star Wars, I don't know if I'd believe you. It's been a long road. Now, my buddy Tyler Page grew up on the prequels. Yeah, like if you're a kid during the prequel era, there probably was not enough time to step away from it because there wasn't this, 83 to 1999 gap. I don't know if the Ewoks and the droids really fulfilled the void, filled the void, if you will. I don't think that really kept Star Wars alive. That's why they weren't super successful, and that's why the toys were a flop, and that's why they're $1 million now on eBay. But I did come from a time where, like my friend, I always talk about my friend Jimmy Mack, 83. He was interested in girls and cars. He was not interested in, Ewok teddy bears, and he was interested in other things. And if you were a Star Wars fan from the original trilogy, there was enough time. There was enough time to get out of it. And there were a lot of different reasons to come back to it. I still don't understand why some people never got back into Star Wars. Not everybody I went to school with is a Star Wars nut like you. Star Wars nut like myself, like my fellow friends, like my Patreon members. By the way, don't forget to check me out on Patreon. I swear, $2 a month. Come on, you can buy a cup of coffee. It costs you $2 a day. $2 a month, you get all kinds of podcast episodes weekly. And right now, this is the third free podcast that I've released into the wild, such as you non-Patreon subscribers. There are 52 episodes exclusive to Patreon members for the calendar year of 2021. And then I also take you guys inside my collection virtually, if you will. There's a segment called Inside the Wampa Cave. And for $5 a month, you get the podcast show. You get Inside the Wampa Cave. And you also get your name put into a name draw that we do on Machtails from the Cantina Live. which we're doing 2 shows to end out the year. Show number 11 is going to be this Saturday. It is a holiday show. This Saturday, December 18th. And if you're missing this, you're listening to this podcast on the playback, you can go check that out on YouTube. You can check out all the mocktails from the Cantina content on YouTube. But the 18th, I got Dan Matson, the former fan club president of Star Wars, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, Back to the Future. I'm going to see how much of a fanboy he is about the Yuletide season. I got Jason Swank, my friend and yours from Rebel Force Radio. We're going to talk a lot about music, and I'm going to give him the Chris Mocked Christmas questionnaire. You know about his personal stories with Star Wars on RFR, but you don't really know him during the holidays. And I hopefully after I give him this questionnaire, we're going to know a lot more about his habits and fanaticism and his traditions with the Yuletide season. Also, I have a good friend and fellow Babu freak, and he's the creator of the Machtails artwork, which you also get some Machtails swag at the $5 level. He's going to be joining me. We're going to be reviewing 8-Bit Christmas, which was a great movie. And then I'm going to end the night with the stop in Malfunction Junction with my good friends, the Duffys, John and Lisa Duffy. And then the last show is going to be in front of a live audience Wednesday, December 22nd. So that's a week from today in front of a live audience. Jimmy Mack will be a guest on that show, as well as my good friends, Sean Hines and Alfie from the Real Fans of the Saga and some of the past projects that I worked on. So I hope this episode you found interesting and informative, because I've never gotten a chance to really just rant and rave about my love of Rogue One. And I hope that came across today. I hope that came across today in this episode. And if it didn't, or if there's any other thoughts that I forgot about, I will be releasing a podcast episode down the road for the Patreon members. And I'll get even a little deeper into that. But no notes in front of me. No website that has the top 10 greatest moments of Rogue One. That was just all from my head. And at the end of the day, when I do this sort of thing, I do feel a little bit like Luke Skywalker in episode 8, just kind of exerted all my energy, which in my opinion, that was a great way for Luke to die. You know, I know throwing a lightsaber over his shoulder might have not have been the greatest choice for most fans. It didn't really bother me. I feel like the humor in episode 8 was a little different. I'm not used to humor from humans. I'm used to humor from droids, though. So, but anyways, guys, hey, Merry Christmas. I hope you enjoy this episode. I hope you check me out on Patreon. I hope you like and subscribe the Mocktails from the Cantina content that is available for free on YouTube. So be well, be safe, Merry Christmas, and have a happy New Year. And we'll catch you guys next time on Mocktails from the Cantina. Another round, the podcast edition of this show. We will see you guys next time. So long, everybody.